We are almost to the end of the book of John. I can't believe we're here already. Oh boy. We've been hanging out listening to Jesus's final words for quite a few chapters. We've been kind of absorbing them and just taking them in. And then when I turned the page and I looked and it said Jesus arrested, I was like, oh, we're already here. We're at the end. Jesus is going to be arrested. Judas is going to betray him. Peter's going to deny him. Pilate is going to ask him a lot of questions, whether he's the king of the Jews. Jesus is going to give him very short answers. And next week, Jesus goes to the cross. I actually, as I opened this up, I started to get sad. And I stopped the video before I started it because I just realized that is this a good thing? How do I feel when all of this is going down? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? And so I stopped this video and I actually recorded one for Thursday. I will post it. Ironically, my Psalms 119 is in the 9th section of Psalms 119, and it asks the question, is it good to be afflicted? Is it good to be persecuted or have trials? And we answer that on Thursday, so wait and watch for that video. But today is Monday, and we're starting our study in John chapter 18. There's a lot to dig into, though. We're going to be back into being able to do some archaeological or some investigations on some things. So a lot to do this week in our study. So let's get started. Go ahead and grab your Bible and open to John chapter 18. I would say, like I normally do, I can't wait to get started. This one's a little bit harder. So let's get started. So you're going to see on Thursday, on the short video I did before I filmed this one, be joyful always. Can you be joyful in persecution? Can you be joyful in the trials, in the hurt, in the lies spread about you? All of those kind of things. Check that out on Thursday. But the same thing, can we be joyful as we are diving into some hard things? Jesus' crucifixion is always the hardest. I am the only member of my family, my current, my immediate family, my hubby and my kids, who has not seen the Passion of the Christ. It's just too much for me. It's too hard. I have a hard time even reading through it. I am so grateful to our Jesus for everything that he did, but I'm also broken by it, and it breaks me every time. And so luckily we're not going to cover his actual cross today. That's next week. But today we're going to see him be arrested, betrayed, denied. His followers are going to scatter. And that's sad, So let's just go ahead and dig in. By the way, I'm Krista. This is Finding Shalom. And we have been going through the book of John, and it has been so good. It's been life-changing. And I know this chapter is going to be just as good. There's so many really good things to discover. So verse 1 in 18. When he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed the KIDRON valley. On the other side there was a garden, and he and his disciples went into it. So first thing is, do you remember last week we listened to Jesus pray 3 prayers. One, that the Father would glorify him and that he would bring glory to the Father, and also for his disciples, that all the prayers he prayed for them to sanctify them by the truth, that his glory would come through them, that they would know him, all of those things, that they would have joy Joy to the full measure, a full measure of my joy within them, even though they're going to go through some hard times right now. And then he prayed a third prayer for us, the people who would believe because of their message. And 2,000 years later, here we are, believing because of the message of those disciples who were with him. We last week we also went over words like glory and to know, what it really meant to know Jesus, and what it really meant to know the Father, and him to know us. And so this is the prayers, and it says, when he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley. Right there, we are back into investigation. And if you've been with me at any point of time in this study, you know that down in the description of this video, and also a post in the community section of YouTube, I will have a list of links to extra study videos, and this is where it's going to get good. The Kidron Valley has so much. There was a wealth of information on the Kidron Valley. I'm only going to be able to put in a handful of videos. I definitely couldn't do all the ones that I got to watch, but go ahead, and if you've got more time this week, search the Kidron Valley, because there are so many. I'm going to try to narrow it down to a handful. But the Kidron Valley has so much biblical history. Oh my goodness. David fled through the Kidron Valley when he was leaving the castle, or leaving the palace, when his son Absalom was trying to take over the throne and was rebelling against him. And the Psalms 23, where it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. You can imagine, I don't know that he wrote it at that exact time, but you can imagine that as he's exiting the Kidron Valley and leaving Jerusalem, David probably had that psalm playing in his head. And Jesus then leaves Jerusalem for the last time, except for them pulling him back in for all the trials. But he leaves Jerusalem, heading to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he goes through the Kidron Valley. And so he probably is got the same Psalms 23 playing in his head. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So Jesus is actually taking on the judgment of the world here in just a few short hours. They call the Kidron Valley the Valley of Judgment. It was a place where they threw the trash because it was, would that be downwind? The wind went the opposite way so that they didn't have to smell the trash, or they had a lot of graves there. There was a time they were cleaning out the temple. You can look all this stuff up. It's just rich with it. And someone had defiled the temple and put in all of their false altars and statues and stuff. And so the priests came in to clean out the temple, and they threw it all into the Kidron Valley. One of these valleys right through here was also where they would do sacrifices to Moloch, which is sad because this is the Israelite people who were supposed to be following God and Yahweh, and instead they were also sacrificing on the side their children to Moloch right here in this valley. And so this valley has like a history of, there's so much to uncover. It also has a place in Revelation where Jesus will actually come back to this valley. So I would just suggest that you just do a deep dive on the Kidron Valley. It's so good. Then we also have the Garden of Gethsemane. It doesn't name it right here. It just says there was a garden. Well, the Garden of Gethsemane, you can actually visit it today. And there are a lot of videos on that as well. And I will only be able to put on a handful. So on the other side, there was a garden, and he and his disciples went into it. So many things to investigate. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers. How many people is it going to take for them to arrest Jesus? And some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. Wow. Like how many people? They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Okay, I want you to imagine this. Number one, it's at night. And it's also after the Passover Seder, or the Passover dinner. So you can look it up in Matthew, Mark, and Luke for a bunch of other details on the Passover meal. And then what happened after the Passover meal. And then he ends up along the way praying for those 3 prayers for the believers. But then he leaves and goes through the Kidron Valley to the garden. Now you can also pick up in the other books what happened in the garden, because John just kind of jumps over that, knowing that you've already read the other books, so you already know those details. So he prays in the garden. He asks God to take that cup from him. He sweats blood. He is frustrated with the disciples because he says, please stay awake and pray with me. And they keep falling asleep. So there's other details I want you to kind of, I'm not telling you what to do, but it would be good if you could go back and read some of those other details so you can really get a visual. But then it's at night, and it says that they were carrying torches and lanterns. Now they're coming from Jerusalem. So when you're watching these videos, realize that Jerusalem's on a hill here, the Kidron Valley is here, and then the garden is here. So if they're praying in the garden, they probably have a view. I think you'll be able to see, there's some really cool walking videos where they're just walking through, and I love those because I can put them on and just kind of relax. But you can see that if it was at night, there would have been torches. They could see them coming on the road. Jesus knew they were coming. He could see the crowds. I mean, there's a big crowd of them, and they've all got torches. So how long does it take to walk from here to here? And how long did he and the disciples be able to see them coming? The disciples probably didn't know that that was for them, but Jesus knew. Jesus, knowing, there's that word knowing. Remember, we were collecting all the things that he knew? Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, who is it that you want? Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. I am he, Jesus said. And Judas the traitor was standing there with them. When Jesus said, I am he, they drew back and fell to the ground. Before, I used to just read past that and not realize what is going on there. What do you think? Why do you think they drew back and fell down just because he said, I am he? I think that it's because, well, I'm not going to tell you. Just do some research and see why on earth did they fall back. Again, he asked them, who is it that you want? Jesus of Nazareth, they said. Jesus answered, I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go. This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. I have not lost one of those you gave me. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, I love Simon Peter, I love him, had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Jesus commanded Peter, put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? And that is a reference, remember, to the Passover cups. So there's some things there that we can research. It's also in some of the other Gospels where he says, he's praying to God saying, let this cup pass from me. So that cup is the suffering. And it also has to do with the 4 cups of the Passover meal. So this cup, if you notice in the other Gospels, he doesn't drink the 4th cup. And the fourth cup has to do, I think, with him going to the cross. So that would be an interesting thing to search. Then the detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. I think that was a couple weeks ago when we were studying that. Where is that at? Can you find that? And who is Caiaphas? So there's some things you can search here too. You can do like a little deep dive. If you've got time, pick one of these guys or a couple of them. You can do a deep dive on Judas. You can do a deep dive on Peter. You can also do a deep dive on Caiaphas, the high priest. Who was he? Okay, Simon Peter, his first denial. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. Because this disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. Let's stop there. Who is this other disciple? Could you find out who this other disciple is? It's an interesting little theory of who that is, and obviously that person had some clout with the high priest, knew him, had a little influence there, and he doesn't want to really say that he does, but he was able to go into the court, and then he was able to get Peter to at least go into the courtyard, not really by the high priest. Okay, so now speaking is the servant girl. You aren't one of the man's disciples, too, are you? She asked. He replied, I am not. It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around the fire they had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself. Verse 19. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teachings. And then this is Jesus speaking. I have spoken openly to the world, Jesus replied. I always taught in synagogues and at the temple, where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. Is this the way you answer the high priest? He demanded. If I said something wrong, Jesus replied, testify as to what it is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me? Could you imagine being in heaven later and realizing you're the one that slapped Jesus? Or maybe not heaven, but or even after the cross, realizing when everybody, the earth shook and everybody realized this is the Son of God, realizing that you're the one that slapped him. And Jesus has authority over the high priest. And yet he just sat there. Could you imagine staying that calm in the midst of all of this? Then Ananias sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there warming himself. So they asked him, you aren't one of his disciples too, are you? He denied it, saying, I am not. One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with him in the garden? One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with him in the garden? Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment the rooster crowed. And if you know that story, I don't know that we did hear when Jesus was talking about it a couple chapters back, but Jesus told him, you're going to deny me 3 times, and before the rooster crows. So when the rooster crowed, he knew. I'm sure that just kind of was like a dagger. Have you ever, I was just thinking about, especially in my younger years, when I was not following the Lord, but I knew the Lord, I was not really doing honorable things for Him. But at the moment I realized something came out of my mouth that I shouldn't have said, or maybe you've done it when you've talked to somebody and something came out of your mouth and you shouldn't have said it, you have that instant regret. And that's that instant regret. Sometimes things that I said accidentally or I didn't mean them the way that they were meant to say, they haunt me. I'm sure that haunted him. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning. So this has gone all night. Remember, he's done the Passover meal. He has done that whole thing. Then he talked to his disciples for a long time there. Then they left and they were kind of walking along the way, and then he tells them about the vines, that he is the vine and they are the branches, all of those great teachings. Then they leave there, they go through the KIDRON Valley. He's prayed for us, he's prayed for himself. So this has been a long thing, and now it's overnight. It's the next morning. He's never gone to bed yet. He has been up, and I'm sure he was up the night before too, just worried about what was coming up. So he's probably sleep deprived. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" Okay, so look up. I would look up if you want to. Why was it that they weren't going to enter into Caiaphas's palace? Because they want to eat the Passover meal. Number one, Jesus' Last Supper is the Passover meal, but I don't think it was the official Passover, because Jesus actually dies at the same time all of the Passover lambs are being slaughtered. So they must have had it like a little bit of an earlier Seder meal, because Jesus knew the next day he wouldn't be here to share it with them. And so why is it that they feel like they're not going to be ceremonially clean and they won't be able to do Passover if they enter into Caiaphas's palace? That's a really good thing to research. So Pilate actually comes out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own laws." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate, and we need to probably look that up and see where he kind of predicted what kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus says to him, "Is that your own idea? Or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and the chief priests handed you over to me. What is it that you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into this world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. What is truth? Isn't that like a modern day question that's asked everywhere? What is truth? What is a woman? What is what is a Christian? What is, I don't know, you name it. What is a man? What is what is sin? I mean, did God really say that? Let's just go back to the garden. Did God really tell you not to eat that apple? Not an apple, actually a fruit. Did God really tell you not to eat that fruit? What is truth? Retorted Pilate. With this he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release the King of the Jews? I'm sure they got really mad at that. They shouted back, no, not him. Give us Barabbas. Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. That would be interesting to find out any extra information on Barabbas. I don't know that there is much other than that. I wonder if there's anything in the history books about Barabbas. Maybe even from Josephus. I wonder, Josephus was a historian. He was not, he might have been Jewish, I can't remember, but he wasn't for the Jews. But he was just recording history at the time, and he does record Jesus and record a lot of the other events, such as the temple falling. He was there when the temple fell, or when the Romans actually took it out. But anyways, that's chapter 18. A lot of little things that you can study here. Some of Jesus' own words. How does this fit into the bigger picture? Even the Old Testament. Jesus is fulfilling a lot of things here. And so we're going to start to see him fulfilling some of the things that happened in the Old Testament. He's not just fulfilling some of the prophecies, but he's also canceling a lot of the curses. He's paying the price for sin. There's a lot going on here, but I would suggest definitely look up the Kidron Valley, because that is such a good deep dive. And I think that just the story of the Kidron Valley will give you actually the story of the Bible, because I feel like locations play a role in us seeing that progression of the story and how it fits into the bigger picture, all the way to the point where even Abraham, when he went to take his son, God told him, take your son and sacrifice him on the mountain. That actually is where the temple was built, and where Jesus was at the temple, and where he walked down the Kidron Valley. So I wonder if when Abraham and Isaac, I think it is, Abraham and Isaac, when they're carrying the wood and everything to go up the mountain to do the sacrifice, I wonder if they were crossing the Kidron Valley. And the Kidron Valley actually has a reputation, or what they call it, the Valley of Judgment. And if you think about it, first there's Abraham there going to sacrifice his son to show that he's obedient to God, and yet God intervenes and actually provides the sacrifice for him, all the way to David walking through there, the valley of the shadow of death, and to Jesus, who walks across it, who actually took the judgment from everyone else, from the entire world, onto himself, and paid that ultimate price, all the way to Revelation, where there is going to be the ultimate judgment. So I feel like locations can actually tell you the story of the Bible as you follow, because all of these, God has a tendency to bring everyone back to this original place over and over and over again. Same with the Israelites, the Mount Sinai. That is another location that they return to over and over again, and God does stuff with them just because of a location, or with the location as the backdrop and being the story, kind of the backdrop of the story. Okay, so a week of study ahead of us. It's going to be a good one. We will find joy because we see that Jesus is being obedient. He's doing it for our good. His ashes, his sorrow, his persecution will turn into beauty because it will turn into grace and mercy and our forgiveness of our sins. So, okay, have a great week of study, everyone, and I will see you in the next video. We'll talk a little bit more about persecution on Thursday. I'll see you in that video. Love you all. Have a great day.